views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and guest do not necessarily reflect those of this station, the station's network, any other affiliates under this network, or its sponsors.
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
This is John Titor II, and I'm going to speak today about a very important issue to every man, woman, and child in the United States of America. For at least 2 decades, one man has worked very hard to undermine the United States of America. And that man's name is George Soros. He literally called the shots during the Clinton administration and also with the Obama administration. After Obama left office, we were having a national election in 2016. And there were 2 candidates that were being voted on. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. George Soros spent $24 million trying to put Hillary Clinton in the White House. George Soros has literally bought every politician he could in Washington, D.C. George Soros has spent $50 million since Donald Trump was elected president. All of this was spent in trying to defeat this man who is now our president. Donald Trump is trying to close the borders. He's trying to bring prosperity back to America. He's trying to get America employed. And we have the lowest unemployment numbers in 50, 60 years right now. And he's done it without the help of Congress. And in Congress, we had members of Congress that have always been bought and paid for by George Soros. Nancy Pelosi, Charles Schumer, Elijah Cummings, now passed away, Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler, and Maxine Waters. And of these, we have Nancy Pelosi, whose net worth now is at some $120 million. She absolutely does what George Soros tells her to do. Now, the Mueller investigation failed horribly for the Democrats and the deep state. After they spent $30 million of taxpayer money, they had nothing. And they sat back and they said, we've got to find something to get him out of office. They know that in 2020, Trump will be elected by a landslide, and there is literally nothing they can do about it. So they're going to try for impeachment. Now, in August of 2019, what has happened? There has been a change to the whistleblower form. Very quietly, the ICIG, who is in charge of maintaining forms and handling whistleblower complaints, modified the form so that hearsay evidence could be used. Nowhere in criminal law or civil law is hearsay evidence allowed in a courtroom. But now, hearsay evidence is going to be used against the president in this whistleblower complaint that has been lodged. Now, Michael Atkinson couldn't make a move, really, without working with Gina Haspel. She is the director of the CIA, and it is she who I believe to be the whistleblower. She is an acolyte or disciple of John Brennan, who was the previous director of the CIA. So what do we got here? They have modified the whistleblower form so they could file a claim against the President of the United States. But that's not all they did. Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff changed the rules on impeachment so that Adam Schiff could conduct impeachment hearings against the President of the United States in secret, without representation of his own attorneys or representation from the GOP or Republican Party. So they've really tried to stack the deck for impeachment. Think about it. How could you do that? They did it. So what we have is a kangaroo court. Now, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, they are guilty of treason, along with Gerald Nadler, Charles Schumer, Maxine Waters. They are all guilty of treason. The deep state are salaried employees, not ever elected, but placed in government in very powerful positions. Gina Haspel is part of the deep state. So is Michael Atkinson. Also, Christopher Wray, FBI director. He's part of the deep state. And then we have William Barr, who, by all accounts, and from all I've been able to discern, is an honest public servant, along with John Durham. They're both honest public servants. And there's something to be said for that. It's very hard to find. In the midst of everything, in the Ukraine, Hillary Clinton and George Soros were working together, and they were involved in investments in the Ukraine. In other words, they were taking advantage of a young government that had recently gotten out from behind the Iron Curtain. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and now it's its own country. And in that turmoil, people took advantage of this new republic. Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, they also became involved in the utility company there, Burisma. They managed to get away with hundreds of thousands of dollars there. But Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, managed to get $1.5 billion from the Chinese. The Bidens need to be investigated. We need to really know what they got. The Chinese got something for that $1.5 billion, and I'd like to know what it is. I think every American should be entitled and needs to know what they got. And now we're in this situation where, because President Donald Trump wanted the Bidens investigated in the Ukraine, he's being called a criminal. He's not a criminal, but he is being judicious. He wants to know what happened to the millions of dollars that we sent to the Ukraine. Where did it go? And was it just a revolving door? We sent it and then it came back with the Bidens, with the Clintons, with George Soros. Where'd all the money go that they got? That's a good question. And we need those answers. And we're only going to get those answers if we press Ukraine to investigate. At one point, Joe Biden had the prosecutor general of Ukraine fired from his job because he was investigating Hunter Biden. And Joe Biden bragged that he had him fired for investigating his son. There can't be more of a quid pro quo than Joe Biden threatening the president of Ukraine that he's not going to get $1 billion loan guarantee if he doesn't fire the prosecutor general who's investigating his son. That is quid pro quo. Now, let's step back for a minute. While all this is going on, what is George Soros doing? George Soros has worked very hard for decades to bring down the United States of America. And he recently forced a regime change in Guatemala. Nancy Pelosi flew down there to congratulate him. But George Soros wants to bring down the United States of America, make the United States a socialist country with open borders. I don't think that any American is prepared for that. I believe that it would bring down the United States of America. But the fact of the matter is, George Soros, if you looked him up on Google or Wikipedia, you would find that he owns hundreds of companies in the United States, and he owns or controls major networks. They are ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, and their affiliates. And what he is trying to do in the media is convict the president, Donald J. Trump, in the media. And it is in the media where he can be convicted. He would then try to use a group like Antifa to do violent demonstrations in the big cities of our country, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, and Washington, D.C. And these would be violent demonstrations and would not stop until they managed to force a regime change on the United States of America. In the background, Attorney General William Barr continues to investigate the source of Russian collusion, who sent us off on that wild goose chase. And he's doing it with John Durham. And I have not heard or seen any indictments. And I have a list of people that are responsible for Russian collusion. And the list is in the hands of the President and the Department of Justice. And the members of Crossfire Hurricane, the covert op to unseat a sitting president and overthrow the government. And here is the list. I'm going to read it verbally. George Soros, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Andrew McBride, Rod Rosenstein, Robert Mueller, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Glenn Simpson, Christopher Steele, Joseph Mifsud, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. These are the co-conspirators of Crossfire Hurricane in the United States government. Andrew Weissman, Anthony J. Ferrante, Jordan Ray Kelly, Tashina Gower. Anthony J. Ferrante, Jordan Ray Kelly, and Tashina Gower are important because James Comey gave them jobs in the White House as FBI liaison, and they were really there spying on the President, Donald J. Trump. Members of the United States Congress that are co-conspirators: Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler, Maxine Waters, Elliot Engel, Steny Hoyer, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. All traitors, all guilty of sedition. There is enough prima facie evidence at this time available in the form of emails and other materials to prosecute all of these people I've just mentioned. Make no mistake. Their plan for now is to delay prosecution for as long as they can, avoid prosecution if they can. It is in William Barr's and John Durham's court to prosecute. I have released the list. These are the traitors. There are other people involved to lesser or greater degrees, but these are the prime suspects. And I say again, there is plenty of prima facie evidence of treason. Now, if the Democrats and the deep state manage to overthrow the government, these people don't have to worry about going to jail. I still believe there will be an attempt to overthrow the government. Adam Schiff is trying to create some kind of groundswell of support, and George Soros is orchestrating the media, and the media lies to the American people. They do not tell the truth. They make selective omissions, if you will, to incriminate the President of the United States of America. It is incredible this has happened to the United States. But politicians, they always worry about campaign funds so they can get reelected. And so they turn to lobbyists, and the lobbyists very quickly seduce them. And with $50 million, George Soros has bought every politician or political appointee he could in Washington, D.C. George Soros is probably the most evil man on the planet. Some people think that he is Satan, the devil. I can tell the American people that George Soros has been banned from not less than 6 countries, and they are Hungary, Russia, Poland, Pakistan, Turkey, and the Philippines. Recently, in the Philippines, the government placed a bounty on George Soros's head. In other words, if he was killed in the process of being arrested, that's okay with them. George Soros is the primary source of money for Antifa. And Antifa operates very much like the brown shirts did during the 1930s. They helped usher Adolf Hitler to power in Germany. Anyone that Hitler deemed to be an adversary, they would go and kill them, beat them up, destroy their businesses. It was pretty methodical. The brown shirts were nothing but street hoodlums, but it helped Hitler come to power. George Soros played a big part in regime change of Ukraine, and he actually used a neo-Nazi group there to help force regime change. And they were a violent demonstration after demonstration in the Ukraine. When candidate Donald J. Trump was running for office in the United States in the 2016 election, the protesters were bussed from location to location and were paid by George Soros. They were paid to demonstrate and, if possible, do it violently. George Soros, very early in life, at about 14 years of age, was in Germany while Hitler was coming to power. And his father, who was a Jew, paid to get George Soros a baptismal, which made him Christian. And the very next thing that George Soros did was he was paid by the Germans to confiscate Jewish property. When asked about this, George Soros laughed. He thought it was funny that he did it. George Soros's net worth is somewhere around $10 billion. I believe that it's deposited in various banks all over the world. But this man is trying to bring down the United States of America. Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler, Maxine Waters, Elliot Engel, Steny Hoyer, they're doing their level best to do that. Now, how would they actually do a regime change? Think about this. Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, is in a line of succession in the government. If you seize members of the government and force them at gunpoint to resign, you could do it all the way down to Nancy Pelosi, and she would become the head of state. Recently, Rashida Tlaib said in a public meeting that they were going to arrest those, and I'm going to say mother effers, and hold them in Detroit, Michigan. And I believe that these plans have been discussed with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. They are co-conspirators. All of these people represent deep state, the radical left. The United States of America has always believed in the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, the right to bear arms. One of the things that we're going to see is there's going to be an attack on all of our basic freedoms. In the United Kingdom, they no longer have freedom of speech. They do not have the right to bear arms. And most of the elected officials in the United Kingdom are Muslim. Muslims here in the United States of America have recently said that they are going to dominate the political scene. I'm not anti-Muslim, but I am pro-America, and I do not wish the spirit of this nation to be changed. This is what the Russians felt. They did not want open borders. They did not want socialism of the flavor that George Soros espoused, and they passed laws. And almost overnight, George Soros was no longer welcome in Russia. I believe that every night when hardworking people get home and they have dinner and they have a few minutes to sit in front of the television and listen to the news, whether it be the 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock news, and they hear lies that have been orchestrated by George Soros to take down the United States of America, it is so wrong what is being perpetrated. The news media and the print media are being used for propaganda. There are some news outlets that present unbiased information, and they are One America News Network and Fox News. And I would have to say that they are like the last bastions of truth in the media. We can't expect the truth from print media. Washington Post continues to look for any way that it can smear or malign the President of the United States and conservatism and the Republican Party. It is interesting that Nancy Pelosi said the other day that the next election would not be decided by voters. If that happens, then we have lost our republic. I am not one for violent demonstrations. I frequently tell people, if Antifa is demonstrating and having rallies, please stay away. They have nearly beaten people to death. There's no reason to confront them. It won't help anything. But the one thing I do believe in, if somehow the deep state, the Democrats, become successful and overthrow the government, overthrow the president, then I believe that America must stand up. And I mean every man and woman so disposed to should stand up and go to Washington, D.C. I call upon the American Legion, the veterans of foreign wars, the 3%, the NRA members, and the 275 militias in the United States of America to go to Washington, D.C. and restore the rule of law. For we are nothing if we are not a country based on the rule of law. We have seen the Democrats and the deep state change laws so they could impeach a president, change the whistleblower form, change the rules of impeachment in Congress for one purpose, not to present unbiased facts to the people, but to achieve an end, overturn an election that occurred in 2016. These are criminal acts of treason, and treason of this level should be punished by death. I believe that the perpetrators did not care about their heritage or about the United States of America. They cared about money from George Soros. When you attack America, you attack our interests overseas. If you do not protect the people on the front lines, you are culpable of murder. Hillary Clinton's email server was compromised, and it was an unauthorized server, thousands of emails on it, stamped secret, a large portion of them. But the result was that 12 CIA operatives in the field lost their lives. Hillary Clinton accuses people like Jill Stein and Tulsi Gabbard of being Russian agents. They're not Russian agents. They just pose a threat to what she's trying to do within the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are criminals responsible for some 78 murders. They've never been prosecuted for it. I believe that in her world, she can do no wrong. But Hillary doesn't care about the United States of America. Hillary cares about power and money. And I would have to say, Bill is no better. Never has been. Voters in 2016, they looked at Hillary Clinton's record and they looked at Donald Trump's and they voted for Donald Trump. And that is what everything is about. Democrats and the deep state want to bring back pay for play in a big way. That's what they're all about. When Hillary Clinton ran the State Department, if a country wanted something, they would have to be willing to pay for the favor, pay for play. I believe that Hillary Clinton had to be removed from the State Department primarily because she was responsible for failing to protect our people at Benghazi. She turned her back on State Department staff at Benghazi, and the hired security personnel faced a horrific onslaught from Libyan terrorists and Al-Qaeda. For some 13 hours, there were calls in desperation to the White House, to the State Department. They never came. One overflight of F-16s could have stopped the attacks. Never came. Obama and Hillary Clinton tried to cover up their malfeasance by saying that someone had produced a movie in Orange County that made the local populace mad and caused them to riot and kill our ambassador at Benghazi in Libya. That was a lie. Hillary Clinton, an accomplished liar. Barack Obama, just as big in pay-for-play as other Washington, D.C. politicians. Most notably, with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, they sold uranium-1 to the Russians. What is uranium used for? Warheads. And so they sold it to the Russians. I believe that Hillary Clinton got some $3 million. Bill Clinton got a little less than $1 million for speaking engagements. Barack Obama, no one knows how much he got. Robert Mueller was involved in the sale. No one knows how much money was passed around, but it needs to be investigated. Then, with Barack Obama, we have Fast and Furious, where the Department of Justice under Eric Holder and Barack Obama sold automatic weapons to the drug cartels in Mexico. They just wanted to see where the guns were going. I think that is the most absurd premise for what they did on record. Eric Holder, a criminal. And he's a politician, too. He can lie with the best of them. And one of the big things that I have found with politicians in Washington, D.C. is that they're very capable liars. And we are looking in America at a two-tier justice system. The two-tier justice system means if you're in Washington politics, live inside the Washington, D.C. Beltway, you're more likely to walk on a felony charge than anybody else, if you're even arrested, while the rest of the country is held to the strict interpretation of the law. I find it incredulous that the Democrats think nothing of the money that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden has gotten from the Chinese and the Ukrainians. Anyone that would vote for Joe Biden really has a lapse of conscience. I believe Joe Biden, an accomplished liar, criminal, and he would be the worst president for the United States of America in our history. I do not believe that he will run against the president. There is not a Democratic candidate for president that can beat Donald J. Trump. And this is what the Democrats and the deep state are stuck on. They have to either impeach him or overthrow the government, because in 2020, 90% of America is going to vote for the man that no one has said killed anybody, that no one has said ever deliberately lied, the man that has tried to keep every campaign promise to the American people. He's building the wall. He's trying to stop illegal immigration. In the western part of the United States, in what used to be the Garden State, California, in the larger cities, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, these are sanctuary cities. Illegal immigration has taken a toll. Crime is out of control, regardless of what you hear in the media. And then we find that there are bigger issues. Time for the break.
For America's wounded warriors, coming home can sometimes be a battle in itself. Making the transition back to civilian life or active duty with a traumatic injury can be the challenge of a lifetime. The USO provides every American a way to support our wounded warriors and their families through every phase of their medical treatment and rehabilitation. It's how all of us, as a community, can give something back to our heroes. It's how we can say thank you and assure them that their sacrifice is recognized and appreciated by every one of us. Join us. Visit USO.org to learn how you can make a difference in the lives of our wounded warriors and their families. The USO, until everyone comes home.
California is a microcosm of the entire United States of America. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, declared the state of California to be a sanctuary or refuge state. He encourages illegal aliens to come here, get a driver's license, and then Kevin De Leon, the president of the legislature in Sacramento, encourages them to steal Social Security numbers. Gavin Newsom set aside $98 million to do health care for illegal aliens. Now, we have to say that we have some 300,000 people that are homeless, and most of them are in the big cities, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. In these cities, we have a rodent population that seems to go unchallenged. Rats are getting very big. In downtown Los Angeles, city employees get typhus, they get the plague, and man-eating fasciitis. It literally eats the skin off the bones. In Los Angeles, members of Los Angeles Police Department got that disease, and they had to scrub and disinfect an entire division of Los Angeles Police Department. Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, got over $1 billion to help the homeless. The only thing that has happened is that they are dying in record numbers. Dead bodies on the streets in the downtown areas. San Francisco, San Diego, same thing. In San Francisco, around Nancy Pelosi's house, on the sidewalks are littered with feces, used needles from drugs, and the homeless. In record numbers, we see tents in these downtown areas. In the suburbs, we're seeing citizens move out of state. They're selling their homes and leaving. In some parts of the state of California, gas is as high as $5 a gallon. Taxpayers in California voted to have roads repaired, and they've never been repaired. The amount of graft and corruption in the state of California is incredible. Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, owns the voting machines in California. Her husband was the prime contractor on a high-speed rail that they were going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on until President Donald J. Trump canceled the federal funds for it. There is no doubt that graft and corruption is a major problem in California, along with pollution. Fires, when they get started in the mountainous areas of California, in heavy winds, they can't be stopped, and whole communities go up in flames. In one area of California, near Los Angeles, Southern California Gas Company has an underground storage facility near something called Porter Ranch. The gas leaked and the residents were poisoned horribly. America, we are on dire straits. We're at the 11th hour. We must vote out of office politicians that are more interested in the graft and corruption, the pay for play, than serving the people. It's a national disgrace, but the root of it is in Washington, D.C., and now they're attempting to overthrow the president, overthrow the Constitution to get their way, to run the country the way they'd really like to have it. They don't care about the people. And so I say again, we must not allow this to go on. America must be prepared to rise up and stamp out this corruption at the highest levels of our government. Congress, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the deep state is embedded, and they're more worried about covering up their misdeeds than taking care of the people. This is the American travesty, and it must end. Thank you. This has been John Titor II. You'll get nothing but the truth from me.